Welcome back to our CIS1060. Today we're gonna go over project number 7. So let's get started. Before we start the project steps, please download these two documents in your device. One is the instruction and one is the workbook. After you have that in your device, we always start by adding the file name by change the 1 to 2. We first go to the File tab and go to the Save As. And here, this box is where we can rename our file. So we changed 1 to 2, and then we hit the Save button, and we can go back to our workbook. And now we can get started. So project step number 1, Shira is assistant director of the claim center for the insurance company in Nashville, Tennessee. She has been tracking monthly insurance claim submission in an Excel workbook and asked for you helping in analyzing the data. Go to the claim log worksheet. That is the second worksheet in this workbook. And this worksheet contains a table named the claim. So basically, this is a table named claim that lists the data about each claim submission. Shira wants you to list on the policy type for each claim, which corresponds to the data in the prefix column. Provides the policy types as follows. Step number A, in the cell F6, enter a formula using the H lookup function to look up the policy type. Use the structure reference to look up the value in the prefix column. So the H lookup, that stands for the horizontal lookup. It means that Excel gonna search for a value across the first row of the table, and once it finds the match, it's gonna return the value from the specific row in the same column. So we first go to the cell F6, and we double click the cell and start with the put equal sign and type H lookup. When we type the first few letters of the function, the system will automatically suggest the formula. So for that case, since we type the HL, the system gonna have the H lookup here, and we double click the H lookup, we should have this formula in this in the cell F6. And you can take a look. Here is some screen tip. So when we start typing a function, Excel gonna shows a function screen tips that explain what argument we need to put. So for this case, H lookup, we need to put the lookup value, table arrow, row index number, and range lookup. So let's go back to the instruction and see what we're gonna put for this H lookup. So use the structure reference to look up the value in the prefix column. So we want to use a structure reference. How we do that is we find the prefix column that is in the column D, and now we are located in row number 6. So we just find the row number 6, but under the prefix, which is a cell D6. So we click one time for the D6. You should have a prefix in the formula bar. So that structure stands for the structure reference. So that is our lookup value. And after we have that in this formula bar, we can end with a comma to move to the next argument, which is a table arrow. So let's take a look at step number B. Retrieve the value in the row 2 of the policy type name range on the lookup worksheet. So in this case, policy types should be our table arrow, and we just put policy type, PO, and the system gonna suggest we can select this 4 option that related to the PO. So the second one, policy types, is what we wanna put there. So we double click that. Now we have a policy types here as our table arrow, and we end up with a comma and move to the next argument, which is a row index number. So the row number 2 is our row index number, so we put 2 here, and then we can add with a comma to move to the last argument, which is a range lookup. So let's take a look at step number C. Each policy type covers a range of a prefix value, so find an approximate match. So the true stands for the range lookup. So what we can do is we can just double click the true here. So we have a true in the formula bar, and that is our range lookup. Otherwise, if we want to type that, please make sure these four words should be uppercase. So after we finish put all this argument for the edge lookup, we can just end with the hit the enter button. So now we applied the edge lookup for the cell F6. And let's take a look at step number D. Fill the formula into the rest of the policy type column if necessary. But since that is a table format, since we just put the formula in the F6, the system gonna automatically fill the left empty cell under the policy type. So if we just randomly hit any cell from the policy type, you can see both of them, they use the same formula, but they have a different result, and that is how the table work. So we finished step number A1. Let's move to the step number 2. She will ask you to also list each claim type, which corresponds the code in the claim code column, provides the claim types as follows. Step number A, in the cell I6, we first go to I6, and we use the X lookup function to look up the claim type and use the structure reference to look up the value in the claim code column. So the X lookup, that is search for the value in the lookup column or row and returns the matching result from the another column or row. So in that case, we first find the I6. So cell I6, we double click that and start with the equal sign and put X lookup. So we can just type XL. The system gonna have a one option, X lookup, that is what we want. We double click that. Now we should have an X lookup in this formula bar, and also we can view the function spring tip. We first want to put the lookup value. So in this case, let's take a look at the step number 8. Use a structure reference to look up the value in the claim code column. So since now we are in the row number 6, we just hit the cell under the claim code. So we just clicked edge 6. So once you click that, you should have a claim code in the formula bar, and that is a structure reference, and that stands for, that is our lookup value. And we can add with a comma to move to the next argument, which is a lookup arrow. So let's take a look at step number B. Use the code's name range on the lookup worksheet as a lookup arrow. So the code is our lookup arrow. Let's put the code here, CODE. So you can see here is a two option we can apply as a lookup arrow. The first, actually, that is not we want, but the second, the codes, that stands for a range of a content already named as a code, and that is our lookup arrow should be. So we just double click the second one, the codes. Now we have a codes in the formula bar, and that is our lookup arrow. And we can add with a comma to move to the third argument, which is a return arrow. So let's take a look at that. Return the corresponding value from the claim types name range on the lookup worksheets. So the claim types is our return arrow. We can type claim. So the first one, the claim types, is what we want for the return arrow, and we end with the comma to move to the next one. Next argument is if not found, but if we go back to instruction and take a look at step number C, specify an exact match or next larger item as the match mode. So that is actually the match mode, but it's not if not found. So that stands for, in this case, there is no specific requirement for if not found what can happen. So what we can do is we just like enter nothing but add with the comma to move to the next argument. So that is a match mode. In this case, 1 is what we want as our match mode. So we put 1 here. That stands for exact match or next larger item. So we have a 1 here as our match mode argument. And next is fill the formula into the rest of a claim type column if necessary. So that stands for the match mode is our last argument for the XLOOKUP function. So there is no specific requirement for the search mod. So what we can do is we end with match mod, but leave no like type nothing for the search mod. So we can just like hit the enter button to let the system know that we fill all the argument for the X lookup for this case. So let's hit the enter button. So now we should have content for the claim type, and we applied edge lookup for the cell I6, and the system automatically fill all the left empty cell under the claim type. So we finish our step number 2 and move to the step number 3. When submitting a claim, customer rate their experience with this insurance according to 3 criteria: policy coverage, value, and service. Shira enter the rating in the claim table and wants you to calculate the average rating for each customer claim as follows. Step number A, in the cell M6, enter a formula using the average function and structure reference to average the value in the coverage to service column in the claim table. We first go to the cell M6. That is where we want to apply the average function. So we double click the cell M6, double click that and start with the equal sign and put average. So that is this one. And we have average function here. And now we want to apply structure reference to average the value in the coverage to the service. And how we can do that is we select the content in the same row, but under the coverage to service. So let's select this, that is cell J6 to L6. So we just drag them, select them all. Now you should have a claims add coverage to service. So the claims stands for the name of this table, and the coverage to the service stands for the header. So now we apply the structure reference for the average function, and that is how it look like. And we can end with the hit the enter button. So now we calculate average for the coverage to the service. And it also wants us to fill the formula into the rest of the average column if necessary. Since that is a table, we don't have to manually do that. The system automatically fill all the left empty cell under the average header. So we can move to the next step. Step number 4, the company policy is make to follow-up call within 1 week to customer who submit a claim on a renter insurance policy, and call customer with 3 days if they provide an average rating of 3 or less. Includes the follow-up information as follows. Step number 8, in the cell N6, insert a formula using the ifs function. So we first go to the N6, that is the first empty cell under the follow-up header. So we double click that and start with the equal sign and put ifs there and double click that. So once we have the ifs function in the cell N6, since that we want to test more than one condition for this case, so what we can do is we can click the FX icon next to this formula bar. So we can just hit that. Now you will have a function argument box pop up. And we can, based on this requirement, we can put the condition and what the result, if that is true, gonna display. So let's take a look at this instruction. Step number B, use a structure reference to test whether the policy type is renter and display the text 1 blank week if it is. So the first condition we want to test is whether the policy type is renters. So how we do that is we first find the policy type. So now we are in the row number 6. What we can do is we hit or click one time for the content under the policy type. So the policy type is here and row number 6. That is a cell F6. So we click that one time. You should have a policy type in the first box, logical test 1, and we want to test whether that is a renter. So we put equal sign here and the quotation mark renter and sorry, renter. The first word should be uppercase and end with the second quotation mark. And that is our first condition we want to test. And if that is true, we want to display one blank space week. So if that is true, the value if true one, that box, we just type the quotation mark, one blank space week, and the second quotation mark. So that is what gonna display if the policy type is renters, and that is the first condition. And let's take a look at step number 6. Use the structure reference to test whether the average rating is less than or equal to 3 and display the text 3 blank space days if it is. So the second condition is we want to test whether the average rating is less than or equal to 3. So we first find the average rating. So that is cell M6. So we click the cell M6. I'm sorry, we need to move to the second logical test. So we click the cell M6. That is in the same row but under the average rating. So we want to test that whether that is less or equal than 3. If that is true, we want to display the text 3 blank space days. So if that is true, it's gonna display 3 days. We want to put a citation mark for the 3 blank space days and with the citation mark. And that is our second condition we want to test. And next, step number D, add the final default argument to test whether any other condition is true and display a blank cell for that condition. So for the logical test 3, we just simply put true there, but make sure all these 4 words should be uppercase TRUE. And if that is true, let's go down a little bit. We want to display a blank cell. So how we can put a blank cell there? We just simply put a citation mark there, but between the citation mark there is nothing. And now we put argument, all the arguments we want to test for this ifs function, and we can hit the OK button. So the system automatically applied the ifs function for the follow-up header, and that is how the ifs function work. And next, let's move to the step number 5. She will ask you to complete the summary information in the range P4 through R12. Calculate the number of the claims made for each insurance agent as follows. Step number 8, in the cell Q6, enter a formula using the countif function. So we first go to the cell Q6, that is here. So we double click that, start with the put equal sign, and put countif, COUN, countif, make sure you select the right one, countif. And step number B, count the entire in the agent column of the claim table to display the number of the claim for finance, which is a cell P6. So in this case, count if function, we need to put two arguments for that. First is a range and the second is a criteria. So the criteria is a furnance, and we can use the P6 stands for furnance. And for the range, we need to select entire agent column. So how we can select entire agent column? Let's go back a little bit. And here, that is our agent header. So how we select them all is we can put our mouse between the line between the row number 4 and number 5. You can see if we put our mouse there, here pop up a down arrow icon, and that in this time, if we one click that line, you can see the entire column in this table under the agent column now is selected. So we successfully select the entire agent column, and we successfully have the range for this count if function. And we can end up with a comma and move to the next argument, that is a criteria, which is a P6. So we just put a P6 there as our criteria. And we can end up with a hit the enter button. So you can see now we go back to the Q6 and we have a 8 there as a result for the count if function. So that means in the agent column, there is a 8 furnance appear in that column. And that is how this count if function work. And step number 6, fill the formula into the range Q7 through Q12 and fill in without formatting. So how we can do that is so now since we select the cell Q6, you can see here is a dot, and we can double click the dot. So the system gonna fill the range Q7 through Q12 and with the same formula. And we want to make sure filling without formatting. So we can just hit the autofill option icon and choose the third one, fill without formatting. So now we finish step number 5. And let's move to the step number 6. Calculate the average rating associated with each insurance agent as follows. Step number 8, in the cell R6, enter a formula using the average function. So we first go to the R6 and double click that, start with the put equal sign here, and we want to apply average if. So there is a two function for that, average if and average ifs. So we just select average if, double click that one. Now we have an average if in this cell, and we need to put the range criteria and the average range. So let's take a look at this instruction. Use the entire in the agent and the average column in the claim table to average the rating for names, which is a P6. So the criteria is also names, which is a P6. And for the range, that is an entire agent column. So let's do the same stuff. Select the entire agent column. So put mouse between the row number 4 and number 5, and above the agent header, you should have a down arrow icon. Click that one time. Now the agent column, the entire agent column is selected, and we have that, and we can end with a comma to move to the next one, the criteria. So in this case, the criteria is P6. Let's put the P6 there. So that is a furnance, and we end with the comma, move to the last argument, average range. So the average range is the average column. So we just find the average header and point the above line for the average header and one click. So now you can see the entire average column is selected right now. So that means we successfully have the average column as our average range as the last argument for the average function. So we can just hit the enter button to let the system know that we finish to put all the argument for the average A function. And next, fill the format into the range R7 through R12 and fill in with our formatting. So we can just like double click this dot, and now we apply the average function from the R7 to R12. And we also want to fill in with our formatting. So we click autofill option and choose the third one, fill without formatting. So now we finish our step number 6. And step number 7, for the record locator information in the range P14 through Q17. Shira asks you to list the position of the record in the claim table with the highest and lowest average customer rating. Identify the record with the highest average rating as follows. Step number 8, in the cell Q16, enter a formula, use the XLOOKUP function. So we first find the Q16. So here we double click that, start with the equal sign, and put X match. So we double click X match here. And there's a several argument we need to put. So let's take a look at the instruction. So first, we want to have our lookup value. So look up the highest rating list in the customer satisfaction rating area, cell P21. So that is our lookup arrow. So we have our P21 as our lookup arrow, P21, and then we end with a comma to move to the next argument, lookup arrow. So in this case, step number C, use the entire in the average column in the claim table as a lookup arrow. So we select the entire average column. So we point the line between the row number 4 and number 5 and above the average header. So we click that one time, we should have a claim average here. That is our lookup arrow. And we end with a comma to move to the next one. That is a match mode. So in this case, step number D, specify an exact match or next largest item as the match mode. So there is a code 1 that stands for exact match or next larger item. So we put 1 here. Let the system know that that is our match mode. And for the search mode, there's no specific requirement for that. So we just put nothing there. And the match mode should be our last argument we need put for the X match function. So we can just like hit enter button to let the system know that we finish all the argument for this function, and we hit enter button. We have an 8 as the record number for the highest. And we finish step number 7. Let's go to the step number 8. Identify the record with lowest average rating as follows. Step number 8, in the cell Q17, enter a formula using the X match function. So we go to the Q17, so the one next to the highest cell. So we double click the Q17 and start with the put equal sign here and the X match function. We double click the X match. So now we have that in the formula bar. So in this case, we want to look up the lowest rating list in the customer satisfaction rating area, which is a cell P27. So P27 is our lookup value. So we put the P27 here and end with a comma, move to the next argument, which is a lookup arrow. So step number C, use the entire in the average column in the claim table as the lookup arrow. So we want to select the entire average column. So that is very similar as what we do before. We point the line between row number 4 and number 5, but above the header average. So we click that. Once we have this down arrow icon, we one click that line. So now the entire average column is selected. And that is our lookup arrow. and we end up with the comma and move to the next argument. So step number D, specify an exact match or next largest item as the match mode. So for this case, 1 is the code we want to put as the match mode. So we put 1 there. And that is very similar as a step number 7. There's no specific requirement for the search mode. So for the search mode, we put nothing. And the last argument for the X match function is the match mode. So we end with a 1 as the last argument, and we can hit the enter button. So now we feel the low is the record number for that case. And we can move to the step number 9. Step number 9, go to the claim type by agent worksheet. So the third worksheet. Shira asked you to compare the claim data by type to each agent. Insert the pivot table to make this comparison as follows. Step number 8, in the cell B3, insert a pivot table based on the claim table. So as we mentioned before, in the worksheet, the claim log worksheet, so this one, that is a table, and we want to use all the data from this table to create a pivot table. So how we do that, I will show you. We first go to the claim type by agent worksheet and go to the B3, that is where we want to insert this pivot table. So we select the B3, and then we go to the insert tab, and here is where we can insert pivot table. So the first group is the tables, and this icon, pivot tables, we click that one time, and that is where we can insert a pivot table template. And since we want to use the data from the claims table, so we just type the claims here. Make sure the first word, the C, we should do that as a uppercase, claims. So we have a claims here in the table or range box, and choose where you want the pivot table to be placed. Since we already hit the cell B3, so it says that is existing worksheet and located in the claim type by agent worksheets in the cell B3. We don't need to make any change for that, and we just hit the OK. So now we have a pivot table template in this worksheet, and that starts from the B3. And we finish the first step, step number A. Step number B, using agent claims as the name of the pivot table. So what I recommend you do is copy the content from the instruction directly. Copy the agent claims, select that, Control C, and then we go back to our pivot table. Hit any cell from this pivot table. You should have a pivot table analyze special menu pop up here. And also you can find here is the first group is a pivot table, and that is where we can rename our pivot table. So we just select the pivot table 1, that is current name. So we select them and paste what we copy, agent claims, that is our name for this pivot table, and we hit the enter button. We successfully renamed this pivot table. And next, we want to display the agent name as the column heading. So how we do that is if we take a look at the right part, you can see here is a pivot table files, and all this name, that is actually all this category is from the header from the claim table. So we want to display the agent name as the column heading. So what we can do is we select agent from this category and drag that to the column section. So we drag the agent to the columns section. You can see here we have the agent name as our column headings. And the next step, display the first claim type and then the policy type data as a row headings. So we drag the claim types and the policy types to the row sections. We first select the claim type. please make sure there's a two category related to the claim. One is the code, one is the type. We want to choose the type, the claim type. So we select the claim type and drag that to the row sections. And also we want to add the policy type data as a row heading as well. So we find the policy type from this category, policy type. We select that and drag that to the row sections. So now we have the claim types and policy types here as the row headings. And next step, step number E, use a count of the claim type data as values. So we find the claim type from these categories, claim types, and drag that to these value sections. So we select the claim types and drag that to the values sections. Once you drag that to the value sections, you can see it's there is a count of claim types display here, and that is what we want. And next, let's move to step number 10. So format the agent claim pivot table as follows. Step number A, apply lean pivot style light 17 to the pivot table to coordinate with the table on the claim log worksheet. So we want to style this pivot table. How we do that? If we simply click any cell from this pivot table, you can see here gonna pop up design tab. So we click the design tab and it's gonna lead us to this special menu. And here is a group named pivot table style. That is where we can restyle this pivot table. So we go there and we want to style that as a lean pivot table style or pivot style light 17. So that is in the light section. And I believe that that should be next to this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this one is the 17th. So we hit that. Now this pivot table is styled as a light 17. And next, step number B, center the data in the range C5 through J29 to make it easier to read. So we first want to select the data in the range C5 through J29. And we want to make to center the data. So how we do that is we go to the Home tab, and here is a group name alignment. So we select the center. So the second row, the middle one, is a center your content. So we just hit that icon. So now all this content is centered. So we finish our step number B. And step number C. In the cell B4, use the claim type to replace the row label text. So I recommend that you copy the claim types directly from this instruction and go back to the pivot table. And that is in the B4. So currently the B4, the content is a row labels. We double click that and change the row labels to the claim types. That is what we copied, and we hit the enter button. So now we successfully changed the B4 to claim types. And next, step number D, in the cell C3, use the agents to replace the column label text. So we copied agents from the instruction and go back to the pivot table and go to the cell C3. So currently that is column labels. We select them all and paste the agents there. And then we hit the enter button. So we change the content to the agents. And next, step number 11. Shira asks you to insert a chart that compares the agent with the top 3 claims. Add and filter the PV chart as follows. Step number A, insert a stock column PV chart based on the agent claims PV table. So how we do that is we first symbol click any cell from this pivot table and we go to the insert tab. That is where we can insert a column pivot chart. So here is charts group and here is icon. So that is a recommend charts. We hit that one time. You should have an insert chart window. And currently we are located in the column chart, and that is what we want. But more specified, we want to insert the stock column. So that is the second one, stock column. So we hit that one time and then we hit OK button. So now we successfully insert a stock column PV chart based on this agent claim PV table. And next, step number B, filter the PV chart to show the data only for the agent, Furnace, Hawkins, and Cooley. So if we take a look at this PV chart, and here is an area named agent, and you can see here is a filter. If we click the filter, filter one time, you can see now all the agents are selected. We first unselect them all. Instead, we only select the 3 agent, which is the first 3 one. So let's select the first 3, Furnace, Hawkins, and Cooley, and then we hit the OK button. So now you can see for this PV chart, it only shows the data related to the 3 agent, and that is what we want. And next, step number C, resize and reposition the PV chart so it could cover the range H3 through O23. So we can first select this PV chart and drag that. Make sure the left up corner could cover cell H3 and the right bottom corner could cover the cell O23. So let's drag it, make it a little bit bigger, and make sure it could cover the cell O23. So now we resize and reposition this PV chart. And next, step number D, change the PV chart color to monochromatic palette 2 to coordinate with the agent claims PV table. So how we do that is we first click on this PV chart, and you can see now we have a PV chart analyze and design and format special tab here. So we go to the design tab, and you can see there is a chart style, and the first icon that is a change the color. We go there, and that is where we can adjust the monochromatic color. So we want to select the monochromatic palette 2. So that is this one. So once we point there, you can see here the screen tip display the monochromatic plane 2. So we hit that one time. Now we successfully style this PV chart. And next, step number E, hide the fill button to remove clutter from the PV chart. So what we can do is we hit and we select this PV chart and we go to the PV chart analyze special tab. And here the last group is a show and hide. And here is a button named fill buttons. And we go there. And you can see here is an option named hide all. So we select that, hide all. Now you can see all the filter buttons are removed from this PV chart. So we finish our step number 11. Let's move to the next step, step number 12. Go to the rating by claim type worksheet. Shira asks you to identify the average rating by the types of the claims made each month. Insert the pivot table to provide this information as follows. So we first go to the rating by claim worksheet that is next to the claim type by the agent. And basically, that is very similar as the step number 11. We want to insert a pivot table here as well. So we first find the cell B3. So we want to insert the pivot table from the cell B3. So we go there, and then we go to the Insert tab. We hit that one time. And very similar, go to the table groups and find the first option, pivot table. We hit that one time. It should pop up a pivot table from the table orange window. And here we also want to use the the data based on the claims table. So we put the claims here in the first box. Make sure when you type that, the first word should be uppercase, CLAIMS. So that is the data we want to use for this pivot table. And for the second option, choose where we want to the pivot table be placed. We already have that in the rating by the claim type worksheet and the cell B3, and we hit the OK button. Now we have this pivot template start from the B3. So we finish our step number A. Step number B, you see the monthly ratings as the name of the pivot table. So we copy the monthly ratings from this instruction and go back to the workbook and click any cell from this pivot table. And you can see we have a pivot table analyze special tab pop up. We click that one time. And the first group is a pivot table, and we rename the pivot table 2 as monthly ratings. So we paste the content we copy to the pivot table names, and we hit the enter button. So now we rename this pivot table as a monthly ratings. And step number C, display the date value as a column heading, which automatically groups the data by the month. So how we do that is we first find the data of the days according to this category. We select that and drag that to the columns area. We drag that to this columns area. So now we have the days, so month, days, and the date as our column heading. And next, we want to display the claim type data as a row heading. So we find the claim type, make sure we select the claim types and drag that to the row sections. So now we have the claim types data as a row heading. And next, step number E, use the average data as a values. So we find the average from this category, select that and drag that to the value section. Once we drag that to the value section, you should have a sum of the average here. So that is what we want. So we successfully have create this pivot table as the requirement for this step number 12. And the next, step number 13, change the summary function to average for the data in the value area and apply the number format with a 1 decimal place to those values to make them easier to interpret. And then apply the lim pivot style light 17 to the pivot table to coordinate with the table on the claim log worksheet. So currently we apply the sum of average for the value, but in this case, we want to apply average of average. How we do that is we first select here is a down arrow icon. We click that one time. You should have a menu pop up, and the last option is a value field setting. So we click that one time. Now we are in the value field setting. So currently is a sum of the average. But if we take a look at this box, here is a lot of option. We want to switch to the average. So we click the average. Once we click that, the box, the custom name changed to average of average. That is what we want. And we finish the first step. And then we want to format the number. So here is an icon named the number format. We hit that one time and it leads us to format cells. So currently that is a number with a 1 decimal place. So if we take a look at this requirement, that is also number format with a 1 decimal place. So based on this requirement, we don't need to do any change for that. And we can hit the OK button and OK button for the value field setting. So now we successfully apply the average of average to this value. And also we want to apply the lim pivot style light 17 to this pivot table. So we just randomly hit any cell from this pivot table and go to the design tab. And here is the pivot table style. And that is where we can restyle that. So we go there and we want to style that as a lim pivot style light 17. So So we choose the 17th one from this light section. So we hit that one time. Now we restyle our PV table as the lean light 17 style. So we finish our step number 13. Step number 14. She will ask you to focus on rating for claim on homeowner policy in April. Display only homeowner data as follows. Step number 8. Create a slicer for the monthly rating PV table based on the claim type view. So we want to create a slicer for this PV table. How we do that is we just randomly hit any cell from this pivot table and we go to the pivot table analyze special tab. And here you can find there is a group name filter. That is where we can insert a slicer. So we go to the filter group and click the first icon, insert slicer. And in this case, we want to create a slicer for a monthly rating pivot table based on the claim type. So we find the claim type, make sure you select the right one, and then we can hit the OK button. So now we have a slicer named claim type for our pivot table. And next, we want to resize and reposition the slicer so it could cover the range G3 through H11. So we drag the claim type slicer to make sure it could cover the range G3 through H11. So G3 and H11. So now we successfully resize and reposition our slicer. And the next, step number C, format the slicer using the limb slicer style light 2 to coordinate with the monthly rating pivot table. So we want to restyle this slicer. How we do that? Once we select our slicer, you can see here is a slicer special tab pop-up. We click that and you can see here's a group name slicer style. That is where we can restyle our slicer. So we go there and choose the light 2 as our style for our slicer. So we successfully restyle our slicer. And the last step, step number D, use the slicer to filter the monthly rating PV table by the homeowner claim type. So in this slicer, there is an option named homeowner. So we hit that one time. So now we apply the homeowner as a filter for our PV table. And the pivot table only display the content related to the homeowner. So that is how this slicer work. And let's move to the 15, number 15. So use a timeline slicer to focus on the April claim as follows. We want to create a timeline slicer based on this pivot table. So how we do that, that is very similar as the step number 14. So we click any cell from the pivot table and we go to the pivot table analyzed tab and go to the filter group. And here is another icon named insert the timeline. So we click the insert timeline and you should have this window pop up and we select the date and hit the OK button. So now we have a timeline slicer based on this pivot table. And the next, step number B, apply the link timeline style light 2 style to this timeline slicer. So we hit the timeline slicer and you can have the timeline special tab pop up. We click that one time and here is where we can restyle this timeline slicer. So we click that one time. Here is a timeline style group and we go there and choose the style light 2. So that is what we want for this timeline slicer. After we restyle that, let's move to step number C. Resize the timeline slicer to a width of 6.9. So how we do that is we go to the timeline tab. And here is a group named the size, and that is where we can adjust the size for that. So we change that to the 6.9 and hit enter button. So now our timeline slicer become wider and that is what we want. And the next, step number D, move the slicer so it could cover the range B13 through H19. So we first select this timeline slicer and drag that to make sure it could cover the B13 through H19. So now we resize our timeline slicer and reposition it as well. And next, step number E, use the timeline slicer, show the data for the April only. So if we take a look at this timeline slicer, now we have the month from the June to December. How we can have the full month for the year is we simply click any cell from the June to December. If we click that one time, you should have a full month for the year 2029. And we want to display the data for April only, so we just select April. So now it's gonna show the data for April only, and that is how the timeline slicer works. After you finish all this project, make sure you save your document before you close your workbook. So we hit the save button, and now we can try to submit that to Disengage and see if we can get a full score for that. I saved that in the Spring 2026 folder. So I drag that. I drag that to the system and submit it. So now I have my grade report. So now you should have a 20 out of 20. And if you have any question, you can email me or go to my office hour. Thank you so much for your attention. I will see you later.